It was just so nice because only about, I don't know, about 8 of us on the call each time. So we did like 4 sessions. So anyway, we'll talk offline.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah.
Hello, this is the new streaming network.com. WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast. #1 singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating. Excuse me, with Christine and Barry. I'm still recovering from the icky, horrible flu. We're going to make it through this hour, though.
I appreciate that. And if you need to be quiet and get a drink of water, please do that.
Thank you. I brought my tea. I just finished a cough drop. I've done as much as I can to make it through this hour, and then I'm going back to bed.
Okay.
So today we're going to talk about how to bridge a variety of differences. And one of the things that came up for me this week was, how do people deal with you when you're sick? And how do you deal when you're sick? I mean, really, that comes up in relationships a lot. Because some people I like attention. I do. We know nobody's going to be surprised. I like attention, period. And so I have a girlfriend that made chicken soup and drove from Seal Beach just to show up at my garage. And we both held our breath. And she gave me a little care package of soup and tea. And wasn't that so sweet?
Very kind indeed.
And then there's the people of leave me alone. I want to suffer in silence. So it'd be really important to talk about that before you get sick and you're expecting somebody to fuss over you or somebody to close the door and throw a box of Kleenex to you now and then.
Did I tell you the story about the girl I was dating who I held her hair when she was throwing up? Did I tell you that one once?
No, please do.
Talking about differences, because the thing she's saying is somebody's sick. Some people love attention, some people want to avoid attention because some people don't want to be seen as sick. And this is kind of like that, but it wasn't about flu. It was about something else. Basically, there was one I was dating. It's going back years ago now, but it's stuck in my head because of this particular instance was such a key teaching for me. And we had great chemistry with great sex. It was a really fun, very fun, romping relationship. It was frankly more for the sex than anything else. To be transparent, just to be clear. But the thing is that she went out one night. I think I stayed home. I remember what happened. I don't remember exactly how. We didn't go out together. I remember that. But she came home and she had food poisoning or something because she had quite a bit to drink too, and she was a bit under the weather to say the least. Anyway, and we basically were in bed and stuff. She got in the middle of the night. She was basically feeling really sick, and so she went to the bathroom and basically had to throw up in the toilet. And I, as the guy I am, went over and basically held her hair back where she was throwing up because it's like I want be kind so she didn't get hair in her face and that stuff. I wasn't going to ignore her, but that experience shut her down because and this is the thing I want to speak about. This is another part differences. Is we had say great sex and we were very, very physically and very, very intimate at that level. But the intimacy of being that vulnerable when she was sick blew a circuit in her. It just shut her down because she hadn't had that before. And she didn't feel comfortable with me being that vulnerable. And basically we broke up shortly afterwards. Now, she may deny that's what caused it, but I believe firmly that's what the reason was. Not because it was right or wrong, but because of the experience of boundary pushing or getting more intimate than was something she'd used to. And it was such a teaching for me because I realized that the fact is that we have part of my experience and learning is about we do have differences that we don't necessarily understand with each other. And sometimes we may put our foot in it rather than go, is this okay? And be that respectful. So that's just another piece from the puzzle about the illness conversation. But the thing about this conversation with a variety of differences is that we don't necessarily understand how to accommodate those differences.
Wow, that is such an important point because generally we just don't know what we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And often people think, well, isn't everybody like this? Or why would somebody be like that? I hear both of those a lot when I'm coaching people, when they're talking about people that they've dated or even people that they were in a relationship with. Why would somebody act like that? It's like they can't even imagine that if you look in the dictionary under any word, the real Webster's dictionary, under any word, there's generally more than one definition in the dictionary. So
Indeed.
couldn't you imagine that each person could have different definitions for each word,
Hmm.
much less a feeling or
Right.
an action. And so that's why I tell people it's really important first to figure out who you are and then say, this is who I am. I
Oh
like a
yeah.
fuss. How are you feeling about? Can you do a fuss? Do you like a fuss? Are you okay making a fuss over somebody else? Are you okay if somebody makes a fuss over you?
Yeah.
Because in this one arena, as we've found, it's not the same for everybody at all. And
No.
we think we're doing the nice thing because it's what we would like or it's how we were raised. And why wouldn't we do this thing? And the other person's upset because we didn't do something or we did something. And it's kind of shocking where if you would say ahead of time, gosh, you might feel the same way, but let's check it out and
Oh yeah.
see in all these different arenas that people think, why would I talk about when you're sick? Because as you just heard, it could be completely different.
Absolutely. And I want to shift examples for a second because something that came out as you were talking about that is this. We talked about this before in other shows, but one of the most obvious ones I can think about differences is love languages. Because we have, if you haven't already done the test, you can go online and go 5lovelanguages.com, blah, 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 all this stuff. If you watch the show, you know about it. But basically, the love languages are really to explain how people experience love differently. And so that could be one of the things that's a deal breaker in relationships. Because if you, for example, are someone who is a visual, like you need to be shown what love is, and somebody else is an auditory where they need to hear what love is, meaning that if you're a visual, you want to be shown love, whereas the other person wants to hear they're loved. And if you don't understand each other's differences, you'll miss each other going, they don't love me because they didn't express love the way I think I should be told how I'm loved. And so the love languages is one of the simplest things you can use in a relationship when you're dating somebody. First of all, even when you're single, do the test for yourself so you know what your primary love languages are. So when you meet somebody, if their love languages are different, doesn't mean it's a deal breaker, but it is important to know that because they're different, you may want to accommodate where they are, so that way they know when you love them, they feel it or see it, whatever it is for them, even though it may not be your natural one. And then hopefully, if you're in a good relationship, they can learn the same thing too. So that way you both can express love to each other the way you want to receive it. That may be different from the one that you normally have for yourself.
Oh, yeah. So I know two couples. One's been together almost 10 years and one's been together almost 50 years. And the guy in both of these is not a say out loud, I love you, care about you kind of person. It's just not who they've ever been. And I've known both of them quite a long time. And
Mm-hmm.
they've just never been that. They have loved people in their lives. They have children that they love and adore, and they are so action guys. They
Yeah.
do so many loving, caring things. They go out of their way to show how much they care and love. They do lots of things without being asked. They do lots of things when they're asked. And both of these women had to kind of get over themselves because the guys were just not going to change. You said that sometimes we can say, gosh, this is really important to me. Is there some way you could do this thing for me? And they had that conversation and both guys went, I just can't. I just can't. I will never get over this. It's going to be a thing. It's going to be my thing. So are there other things about me that you like enough that you can get over this? Because
Right.
sometimes the other person has to get over it, which is really a drag. Because me, I'm a big fan of, gosh, it would make me so happy. And I know men that want to make us happy. And usually you'll go out of your way to do it. And these two men, to this day, they just can't. It's just never going to be. So the two women had to just, I said, stay and be okay enough with it or leave. Stop complaining. Stop complaining. They've been as honest and open about it. And there's so many other things you've asked them to do that they've done. So it's not like they're being rigid. It's they can't do this. Oh my gosh. We all got our comeuppance about that because I'm always the one, oh, I know the guy will do it if you ask him nice enough.
But the thing is,
I got told so, didn't I?
absolutely. And the thing is that what you've said is, and what you're saying sounds like both these men were basically using acts of service as their way of showing love, which is simple. And it's an amazing thing to have someone who does that for you. But again, if you're not wired that way, it's going to be a real challenge. So it's almost like the ladies have to shift their perception to see that they really are being loved by the man, but not the way they expected. but it's a way that works. And so it isn't about adjustment. And that's the thing. Part of this how to bridge a variety of differences is, and this is the thing, some people are very attached that where they are is the right place, and the other person's got to go over their differences to get close to them, which is frankly not working. I was going to say something else, but I'll be polite. So the understanding is that when you're talking about bridging differences, it's kind of like you want to find a way to meet in the middle as best you can, or find some way to get across, or to take turns accommodating each other across that divide. Because the differences sometimes can be something that is so minor compared with the rest of what's available to you, that you realize that why would you not be that person for that one thing? Why you're so attached to that one difference that makes a relationship untenable for you? Doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. You really have to weigh the importance of each thing. And what I finally said to them, which I had to learn to say to myself too, in instances like this, what's their favorite thing about them? What's your favorite thing about them? Are you willing to give that up for this thing? Because in this life with this person, you can't have both. So you get to choose. Yep. And they chose to stay, both of them. And both of them are fine about it, even more than just enough. Because I said, you have to get to good enough. And now they're like, so fine, it's not a problem. But in the beginning, when you really, this is your way. I mean, you know, I'm the words of appreciation gal. I love all those beautiful words. And it would be, I mean, I said, wow, I'd have to really think about that if it was me in your shoes. I was so empathetic about it because I guess I would get over it like they did. I'm glad I didn't ever have to make that choice. My husband was very much an acts of service, but he was very good at words of appreciation. So when you come up against your things, you really do need to keep judging. Where's the weight? What's the thing that's the most important to you? And you have to stop complaining. Oh, that's so hard.
It's the thing. I said in a way what I would suggest is that if you notice yourself starting to complain, what's the impact of that? What is the value of that? Because if you're complaining because something's wrong, different, really, I would strongly suggest if you catch yourself before you even say it, better yet, or before you say it to the person, is get clear about what it is you're judging or feeling separate from. And is it really that big a deal? Is what you're, again, like you said, what is you're giving up to have this attachment to this thing that you don't want to change? Because the challenge with differences is oftentimes, again, like we said, we think we're right. We think we're the right thing. So anybody different from that is, in quotes, by definition, wrong. And so you want them to be fixed, or you want to fix them, which is another whole issue with relationships. You don't want to fix it. You don't want to be in a fixer-upper relationship. But the things that you want them to come over to where you are because you're in the right space and they're not in the right space. Therefore, you want them to come to where you are. But from their perspective, it may be the exact opposite. And so the recognition of how we choose to avoid even being in a relationship because that person is so different from us, for whatever reason that is, or can we accommodate? You know, one of the big things right now that's going on, because of what's happening politically, is people in the dating profiles putting, you know, if you're the opposite of my particular preference, don't want to even talk to you. So there's like an unbridgeable divide, is probably the way of putting it, between political views that's becoming so distinct now. Whereas other things like religion might not be such a big deal. So it's like you got to really look for what are the things that are, you know, the bridge too far, or the hill you'll die on. These are big metaphors now. The bridge you'll die on for this one thing that you won't change, so you don't want to accept somebody else. And what can you be missing out on? You know,
such an important point, because there are times when people say, "I can't live without this." Even though there's all these other great things, I can't live without somebody that isn't of the same religious belief, or how could I ever have a conversation with somebody who's so different than my political beliefs?
Yeah.
It's a decision to make. And if you can't, then you need to be really clear about it and accept that the other person can't either. I mean, you've talked enough to say, this is how I'm willing to move a little, and this is how much you're willing to move a little, and we're still just too far apart. You know, can you agree to disagree? Can you agree on a few points even? Because there are some points of, you know, do you both want the world to be a better place? Is there places that you can still be active in your political party and come home and feel like you made your difference doing your thing, and then you can have still a conversation about how the world's going to be a better place. And some people do, as you said, they just cannot get past it. They just can't. And so deciding what the hill is that you're willing to die on and the bridge that's too hard to bridge, because that is so the theme today, that not everything can be fixed. Not everything can be solved. Not everything can come to an understanding where both people can now be together. You might have to just be friends. You can't be in a real relationship where you're connecting your lives and living under the same four walls, or connecting your bank accounts. It might never happen. And I think it's essential to be really honest about, this is how much I can move and I can't move anymore. And be really clear about why, and have a really good argument, because that's the thing that I get frustrated with, is when I say, explain to me why you think differently than me in whatever area, and they can't. And so that's almost more frustrating than if they really said, this is why, and I have all this evidence and what really works for me. When they can't even come up with an argument, I get very frustrated. Or when their argument doesn't leave any room for me to say, well, I have a different belief. Could we talk about that? I have a different belief, because I'll listen to your different belief. That is a difference that I can't bridge at all, if there's no room for both people to have their separate opinion.
It's one of those things that really, frankly, becomes such well, let's say this way. Ultimately, the people who say they can't cross over the bridge are the ones going to lose out. So the ones that are willing to are the ones that are going to be in favor, so to speak. But it is something that continues to be an interesting divide, because the title is How to Bridge a Variety of Differences. Yet the thing is, there's so many things we can have differences about. A simple one just to throw on the table as well is whether you want to live together or not. I know quite a few couples who choose to live physically apart, even though they've been together for 10 years, 15 years, because they feel that having that freedom of each other, their own places, just lets them have their own autonomy, and then they come together whichever way they want to do it, like to each other's place, and it just works for them. But some people, it's like, no, their commitment is that if they're going to be together, they're going to be in the same house and live in the same space and be in the same bed and all that sort of thing. And so it's a thing where, if that's a different viewpoint, one wants to live separate, one doesn't. How do you work with that? Can you adjust? Can you understand each other's position, like you were saying? Can you walk a mile in the other person's shoes, so to speak, and then understand where they're coming from, so that you can say, you know what, I understand where you're coming from, and either I'm willing to shift, or that just doesn't work, and it's clear, rather than just simply saying, I'm stuck here and you're stuck there and it's not going to work. So it's like what you said, it's like, can you have not so much necessarily an argument, but a conversation at least of what the differences are and why you have them, because you can then bridge the differences more easily.
And what's really interesting is when you hear another person's perspective, it might make you either say, I never thought about it like that. Maybe I could move over a little that side, or, oh my gosh, that even more firmly helps me with my convictions about, this is why I feel the way I do. And I can now even come with more information about why. That still doesn't mean you're not going to get along. It just means that you've gotten even more firm about what your differences are and why. Because when somebody can really come up with a really good argument, I'm so impressed. Even if it doesn't change my mind, I'm like, you really thought that out. I like that you talked about the sleeping together, because I know two couples that have been together for a very long time. And over the years, the man in these two cases developed sleep apnea and restless leg. So their kids moved out, so they had extra bedrooms, and so they now sleep in extra bedrooms, but they visit each other very regularly for sex. They have lots of pillow talk. They're still very intimately, not only just physically, but emotionally very connected. They make lots of time to be in bed with each other and spend other time together. And then when it comes time to sleep, because they both want to get a good night's sleep, they go to their separate rooms. And it's interesting how they don't tell everybody. The people who go, I could never do that. But they're like, one or both of us would be suffering, and then we'd be a grouch the next day because neither one of us would get a good night's sleep. And we figured out that we get a really good night's sleep this way. And I admire that they both thought we could do this and not feel any less care about each other.
They found a way that works, and it worked for them beautifully. So the differences are actually
really well. Yeah.
So we're going to be taking a break in a second. So we have a lot more to talk about, because this variety of differences is not just a few things. There's a lot to talk about, and we definitely will give you some more input when we come back from the break. So we'll see you soon.
Hi there, this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry, and today we're talking about how to bridge a variety of differences. And I was thinking, even just from the very beginning part of the dating process, how I've said more than once, when I start seeing somebody kind of regularly, I like a good morning text. I like a good text. I like a how you doing in the middle of the day text. Eventually, I'd like to have a telephone conversation at least every other day or every 3 days. And I say that out loud. And sometimes they'll say, oh my gosh, I like that too. Or, oh, there's no way I could do that. Would it be all right if I did this much? Because this is how full my days can be. And then I'll tell women that, and they'll say, oh, that's just too much. It feels really needy. Well, then figure out what it is you do like and say out loud. Because often, sadly, we get very mad at you fellas for doing too much or not doing enough. And we didn't tell you what we'd like instead.
It's that's the other part, by the way. The conversation is telepathy. We have this bad habit of not explaining, because you said, we saw earlier before the break about how having a conversation is such a key part. However, there are certain times and certain people in the world who basically think, again, their way's the right way, but they don't explain themselves to their partner. And so this assumptive reasoning, where they think the other should understand who they are without any question, any conversation, any willingness, is such a leap of faith. Be polite, but a leap of assumption of not knowing the truth. And so the willingness to converse, and just as a principle in a relationship, you want to get to know the other person. And so being willing to ask questions, even when you think you know, so you don't make assumptions, you don't become telepathic. You do in fact say, I'm not sure if this is what you like or what this is what I like. Is there a match here? Because, we talked in other episodes about having your green flags and red flags and those sort of things. Well, the differences may not be red flags. It may just be new discoveries, like a new idea. I didn't think about that before. How do I want to handle that? So as you said, with a couple of people, they do enjoy being together, but also spending time apart. And that may be something that wasn't on your green flag list initially. But maybe it's time to add it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many people think that long distance is never going to work for them. I want somebody that I could just, call up and say, let's go to the movies or let's have dinner, with, much of a moment's notice. And lots of people think that. And then sometimes when they meet somebody that's an hour or 2 hours or 5 hours or a plane right away, and they think, but I really like them. I like their conversations. I like how I feel with them. So to have your preferences for sure, and then maybe be open to at least having a conversation about, I think I might be willing to do this. Are you willing to do that? And then to keep it as an ongoing conversation, because that's the other thing. People will say, oh, yes, this is, I'm fine doing this today. But then in a month, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that you meant forever, and revisit it. Are you considering moving? Are you considering doing something different? Or am I the person that's going to do all the driving? Are you going to do all the driving? To keep talking about it and never assume the other person knows what you're thinking ever.
Right. Oh, assumes we've talked about that before in the episodes too. And that's the thing, is in a way, why not treat every new date, if you're single and you're going on dates, treat every new date as a brand new person you never met before. The challenge is we do get into a bad habit of making assumptions where, because they look a certain way, we think there's a certain style or a certain thing about them. You don't have a clue, honestly, about who this person is. So be inquisitive, be willing to find out, and yes, discover the differences, because they become, for somebody who's really interested, something fun to explore, like how would they bridge those differences? How would they reach across and make that person a good match for them? Because it's easy, just to be blunt, it's easy to chicken out. It's easy to fall away. It's easy to back away and say, you know what, they're too different. I can't be with them. It's like that sort of thing. And to be really blunt, a lot of people like staying in their small corner of the universe and not exploring what's out in the world. And one of the joys about meeting new people is hopefully your horizons expand and you explore new ventures and you might become a better person. So meeting someone who's different from you is going to be more likely if you're expanding your horizons. So why not take it on as an adventure and as a positive experience and have something happen that could be wonderful? You know, I definitely have met enough people over the years myself where I've realized that some people I'm attracted to nothing like me, and some people I'm attracted to, or some people I'm not attracted to, are very like me. So it can work both ways. You know, just to cover that base, and it's an interesting journey, and it continues to be. So I love this thing called life.
And it's such an adventure all the time with everybody that we meet.
Absolutely.
And even if it's something that you can't bridge the differences about, at least you've now said, I didn't know people thought that way, because now you know people think that way or act that way or don't act that way. Because how would you know if you don't say, this is what works for me, tell me what works for you? I mean, that's, I think, the most essential thing is to keep saying, here's some boundaries that I have. Here's some preferences that I have. What do you think of them? And then how do you handle those same things? Like people that are morning people and people that aren't morning people. When I experienced my stepdaughter, when Tony and I first got married, and Tony and I were both obscenely happy people in the morning. It was so fun to meet, because the first time I was married to somebody who was not a morning person. And now I married somebody who was such a morning. He was more of a morning person even than me. And my stepdaughter would go, 2 hours. Just don't talk to me. And I respected that, because she said, I can't do all that happy first thing when I get up in the morning. It was okay. At least she said it, and in a generally pretty nice for a teenager way. And so I would just wait, and the fog would lift and she'd say something pleasant, and then I knew it was okay to talk to her.
That's the thing is, and especially, and I'll say this from being a single for quite a long time, is we get into routines and things that work for us. And one of mine is I used to be a night owl. I used to get up late in the morning and I stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning. Now because I decided to commit differently, partly because the pandemic did that for me. I decided to shift my schedule. So now I get up much earlier in the morning, go to bed at a decent time in the evening, relatively speaking. So if I met somebody who doesn't match the same hours I do, I'm not sure. I mean, it might be fine, because I have my own things I do first thing in the morning. So basically, go out for a morning hike and do my inner practice and everything else. Doesn't need anybody else around for that. So if she wants to sleep in like an hour or two after I'm up, that's fine, because what I'm doing is my stuff anyway. So when I'm back, I can be more present to her. So those sort of differences can be very flexible if you know what you're doing with your life and what works, and finding commonality. Because yes, I'd love if my partner wants to hike with me, but if they don't, and they're going to be getting up once I'm done with everything I'm doing, then I can be present to them. So there's ways of doing this that can be fun, that can be easy, that can be workable if you're willing to look at it that way. So again, differences aren't necessarily deal breakers. That's the thing I want to make sure we get.
Yeah, because there are things that are deal breakers. You know, we've started out the beginning of this podcast talking about some of the things that broke up your relationship, have ended, relationships because of political things or religious things. So to say, oh yeah, I can't, you can't, I can't. And then the things that you might keep having a conversation that both people get a chance to say their part. It's so funny how often women will say, men are not good at having conversations. And I said, well, I used to be bad about this too. We don't always give them a chance to talk. We just keep telling them about us. And we don't say, and how's that for you? What goes on for you in this particular arena? You like getting up early. I don't. How would you be with that in the morning? How would your morning be okay? And you would have a conversation about, well, I'm going to go hiking. And if there's mornings you want to come, that'd be great. But generally I've been doing it by myself and I'm still okay doing it. And I'll come back and maybe we'll take a shower together because you're up and I'm all sweaty. I mean, really, that could be a very fun end to that.
Exactly. But
the thing is, talk about it back and forth. Yeah.
There was something you said that just sparked something for me. Oh, if it'll come back. It was the something about the conversation. No, it's gone. If it comes back, it'll come back. It was a good one too. Oh well, we got time
How we
still.
keep interrupting you and not letting you finish.
Oh, that's the thing. Thank you. You got it. You just give me what I needed. Speaking about the conversation between men and women, it's like you're saying about how women don't often give men a chance to say anything. This is what I think is one of Alison's teachings. I think it's one of Alison's teachings. Talks about how that a woman will say something and ask for a man's opinion, but we process slower than women do, generally speaking. So when a woman asks a question, we have to think about it and consider and then give her an answer. We don't have an immediate ready to go answer. The challenge is that what women have a tendency to do, because they have this habit of thinking that we think like they do, because men think women think they would like they do. When a woman thinks a man thinks like they do, they think that the man didn't get the message because he hasn't answered her yet. So she will try to change the question to see if that'll get a better answer out of him. Meanwhile, he hasn't finished processing the first question. So now she's asking the question the second time differently, and now it's going, whoa, hang on a second, I've got to put that one aside, now I've got to figure out this question. So the challenge is for the man in this context is he's trying to process what she's asked for to give her the answer that she needs, but she keeps changing the question on him too quickly that he can't get the answer out. Frankly, any man who's in that situation, say to her, give me a minute so I can answer you. Because the challenge is a lot of women don't recognize this challenge that we have, this difference. And so bridging the difference, the difference between masculine and feminine is a bridge too far for some people. They can't understand how to work across that bridge. But understanding these sort of things, learning about each other, and because we are different, and being willing to ask questions and also be willing to stand up for yourself, saying, hey, let me process what you asked me so I can give you an answer. It sounds like so fundamental, but so many people miss this point in relationships and dating. So listen up. This is a key teaching.
It really is. And I think in addition, what the man could say is, it's really important to me to give you a thoughtful answer. And so I need to think. I need to have some thoughts about it. And so could you just wait a moment and let me think about it? And a really good woman, as I had to learn to do, bit the inside of my cheek to keep from interrupting, because, oh boy, I wanted to. And you really do give very thoughtful answers. You really do think it out and process all the important words that we've said. So if we want to be treated as our words are important, we women need to shut up and wait for the answer.
Absolutely. Such a simple thing,
It seems so simple, but it was very challenging in the beginning. I truly had to bite the inside of my mouth to keep reminding myself to not open my mouth, because we are gold medal winners, us women, about interrupting. And a man too, it doesn't seem to happen as often. If we're attacking you, you will often interrupt to stop the attack and defend yourself.
Yes.
And then everything just escalates and gets worse. So for a man to wait, just really hard too, until we're done with our emoting, even though we're saying untrue things about you and hard things about you. It's another one of the feminine things that when we get all our words out, there's room for us to now hear your defense. It's really a challenge to wait, though.
Yep. Oh, yeah. The opportunities are just abundant to learn. Because the thing is, to be simple about, say it's simply, it's like, we're saying how to bridge the variety of differences. The list of differences we have between men and women is extended. So this conversation is relevant to so many different aspects of dating and relating to get to know each other. So I just want to get this point clear that this is not just for the big stuff, it's for all the stuff. Because we do have a lot of things that we assume about ourselves and each other that creates a divide that we may not be able to cross over very easily unless we constantly think about it and go, oh, hang on a second, different perspective. How do I bridge that gap? How do I connect that over? So, yeah.
Yeah. Those communication differences, bridging them, are very challenging. And we've certainly done lots of podcasts about them, and we will continue to do more podcasts about them. So the other thing that we've talked a little bit about with the cultural differences in our recent podcast is family time, time with each of your families, time with how much time with your friends, how much time do you need alone, how much time do you need socially, and how do you bridge those? I was at a party once, and the guy was talking, I was just chatting with this guy, and it turns out his wife is very much an introvert and he's very much an extrovert. So their agreement is he goes to something once a week with this group, And then she comes once a month because that's all she can stand. And then they still spend tons of time together. From his point of view, sounded like they were happy and working this out. And she got to stay home and do the alone things that she likes without him being there. And they really had a great understanding about it. And, I was listening to other people listening and they were saying, oh, I could never. And how could she trust him? But he was perfectly lovely. He wasn't flirting with other people. He was just he was getting his extrovert fix. So even though they really had these very big differences in their personality style of how much social time they needed, they had worked it out. They'd been together for 10 years. It was really fascinating to hear how they had talked it out.
This is the thing that, again, this personality stuff is such a big part of the conversation, from the whole love languages to whole introvert extrovert. But even if you start doing astrology charts or human design or other things too, you can get so nuanced on this. I guess the bottom line is very simple: is that presume the person you're meeting is different. Just make that assumption up front, and then you can spend your time getting to know what the differences are and seeing how you would go about bridging those differences. Because the thing is, if you like the person, it's worth it to you. So again, don't make assumptions up front. Be curious, be interested. To quote, went in my head. Basically, if you just remember to stay in the interest side, is just keep doing it so that you can really get to know the person, because some of the things that make it attractive is what's different, because the sameness can get really boring very quickly. So you want to find someone who's different, which means the investment and the interest in being able to bridge that difference is important to you. So be willing to learn.
I like assuming they're different. I think that's a very good philosophy. Let me go find all their differences and how charming. Remember, I said that when I was dating, and there were men who just didn't like some of the parts that are just me. And I said, well, I know the man who falls in love with me will think my idiosyncrasies are charming. And my late husband did.
Yeah,
I have to pack for 3 days and I bring a lot of stuff. And I mean, he just was like, oh, okay, it's just part of who you are. Doesn't bother me at all.
Right. Simple stuff.
Because we couldn't have been more different in that way. And both of us were fine with the other person being different, and there wasn't any disapproval. So that's how we bridged that difference. And what was really helpful is that we both really knew ourselves and were okay with who we were. I didn't feel like I needed to apologize anymore. I was tired of apologizing for that. And to just say, this is who I am. And he's like, okay, should there be a problem about that? No, I'm glad there's not a problem.
Right. In fact, that's one of the key things about this whole conversation too, which will back up to underscore what you said, is you want to get to know yourself well. Because one of the things about difference is you don't know what is different about somebody else if you don't know who you are. So spending the time to get to know who you are in a better way, in a bigger way, so you can then meet somebody else and know where you stand and what's important to you, so that other person's differences can be additive versus so contrary to who you are. Because the difference isn't a bad thing. Ideally, that person's done their work too, so they know who they are. So you can basically own your space and be willing to share who you are with each other, so you meet in the middle. That'd be ideal.
It would be so ideal. If you could now get to a place in your life where all the things about you are at least good enough. You're smart enough, pretty or handsome enough, tall enough, weigh the right amount. You can have an intellectual conversation, whatever it is, that you can now get to your place where I am good enough. I don't have to apologize for this is. And now I'm going to share it with somebody else and say, who are you? Tell me all the things that you're good enough about. And then does it work out for the two of us to say, oh, yeah, I can adjust about that. It's not a problem. Or I can't adjust about that. And can you adjust about that? I think I've mentioned my parents had this therapist that she used to talk to couples about. Whoever has the 10 of the thing was so important to them, they generally got to sway the vote. And she was having a couples counseling with somebody once, and the woman said, this is an 8. And the guy said, is there anything less than 0? Because I don't care at all. I could care less. And so she wrote a book and did this whole process in her book. And it was called, Is There Anything Less Than 0? Because it's amazing how when I said to my husband this thing that other men had complained about, he was like, and it didn't even bump on his radar at all. it wasn't even like we had to have there were other things we certainly had a discussion about that we each compromised about, but not my packing and all the crap I bring with me and that I have to get the suitcase out 3 days ahead. He was like, couldn't care at all. No big deal. Just let me know when you want the suitcase for me to bring it down out of the attic. I mean, that was so refreshing to me since it had been a big deal to lots of people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is that sense of having clarity about what really bugs you and what doesn't bug you, so you can be okay with the difference. Because again, these differences are going to be there anyway. So how attached are you to being uncomfortable about that? Because again, if you're not uncomfortable, it's easy to work with that person. And so with your with your former husband, that simple fact that he didn't care or not so much didn't care, but wasn't disrupted by the way you do things is such a gift, because then it's like, that doesn't make it, that difference is okay. I'm not going to get upset by that. So lesson learned for people out there is like, those differences you don't get triggered by them. They're just different. Find out what they are.
It's really helpful. So some of the things that have come up in the dating arena of how a person dresses, how a person has facial hair or not, how people talk, how they enunciate. I mean, there's all these things that could be different to you. And is it something that you see a point of having at least a conversation to see, do they have some room to move? My husband said, do whatever you want with my closet. He didn't care. He had beautiful suits, but his casual clothes, it needed work. And so it was nice that he said, I don't care. And I know it's probably not to your taste, so you're welcome to go shopping. So I didn't even have to say anything. He knew that it was a thing for him. And I didn't have as big a thing about it as some people might, but I was grateful to get some things that I said, wear these around the house and here's the outside stuff. So if you have a thing about how somebody shows up on a first meeting and you're not crazy about how they are dressed, if you like enough other things about them, then you can say, gosh, would you be interested in having some fashion advice? Would you be interested in a woman's point of view, since you seem to be wanting to date a woman and this might be a challenge for you and for them? I mean, at least you could bring it up in a nice way instead of, oh my God, he showed up in shorts and flip-flops. Well, maybe he came from work. He didn't want to be late. So at least to give people the benefit of the doubt. You're not saying you're spending the rest of your life with them. You're finding out, is who they are that day sitting there, is this all they are? Are they never going to be anything different? Or do they have some flexibility? For sure.
What came up for me on that one, like devil's advocate side of things, is that you don't want to show up to some relationship and hope they're going to fix you. That's not the way we're talking about this. Because what you're saying, that has opened the door for that. As we said earlier in the episodes, like, get to know who you are and do the work to make yourself a whole being. Like you're saying, be comfortable with who you are, you're comfortable in your own skin. To meet somebody else, you don't need to adjust for them. You get to be yourself, and then you make accommodations for each other that is more balanced, more open, more connected. Because again, the differences are going to be there. It's your choice if you want to embrace them or to avoid them. It comes down to your choice.
Oh my goodness, so true. Yeah, this is not the fix-it committee conversation at all. If that's how it looks, no. Not your person, right?
Exactly.
So if you have discovered some insurmountable differences while you've been dating, or you look back and go, oh yeah, maybe that wasn't as big of a deal and I just assumed and didn't really express my concern or my thoughts about, this is who I am and tell me more about you, Barry and I could so happily help you with that, because it's a very important conversation to first have with yourself and then to have with the other person across the table. And it comes with practice. And that's what we do. We help you practice and get better at it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you'd like to get a hold of me, the best way is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And if you scroll down to the middle of the page, you'll see a What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire. It's just 10 brief questions about where you are and where you'd like to be next. And then you'll have access to my online calendar so that you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me. On my website, you can also join my mailing list. You'll get a repeat of the podcast from today. You can also scroll down to the bottom and click on all of my social media of Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter. And if you click on the YouTube button, it will take you to all of the podcasts that Barry and I've done. There's over 200 of them. You can also send me a personal private email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And how would people get a hold of you, Mr. Selby?
Well, thank you for asking. Similarly, I have a website and social media. So start with the website. My website is my name, so barryselby.com. And on the homepage of the website, there are 3 links I want to talk about quickly. The top one is basically a link to have a conversation with me. I get on my calendar and we'd have a chat and see where you are or where you want to go. And it's my gift to you, basically. If you're not sure what you're looking for or not sure if you have some questions answered, reach out, schedule on my calendar, and we'll have a conversation. So click on the Let's Chat button. At the bottom of the screen is a link to join my email list. Right now, I definitely want to say, if you join my email list, I'm promoting some new things. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you can send me an email, which I'll get to in a second. That'll get to in a second. So back up to my homepage. In the middle of the screen, I have my original relationship assessment, which is basically, are you ready for a relationship? And it's really the key questions you need to answer to figure out where you are. So if you click on the button in the middle, it's the quiz that I have. You can go to barryselby.com/quiz if you want to go there directly, and it gives you some questions to ponder and to answer, so that you get a result at the end of how well you're doing, what you're aligned to. Secondly, I have another quiz which I have soft launched. It's not on my site yet, but you can go directly, which is right there, which is barryselby.com/self-quiz, because as it may tell you in the title, it's about your self-relationship, meaning what's your self-image, what's your self-relationship. I said 7 different areas that really are key to having a healthy relationship with yourself, which in this conversation will then set you up for a better partnership, meet somebody else who's different from you. Also, my website is my book, which is my bestseller. You can get the copy of the book on Amazon or from our website. And on that page is also the audio, which I created. And I mentioned this before, that I actually used AI to create a conversation. I should say the AI created a 12, 13-minute review of my book with two very authentic sounding voices, but it's all AI generated, but it's fun. So go to the book page, have a listen. It's kind of a fun breakdown, and it's very accurate, by the way, so worth listening to. If you want to send me an email, you can send it at barry@barryselby.com. And I mentioned that again is that I have a couple of things I'm offering right now, which I'm just launching. I've got a new course coming up on self-trust, and also a second one is coming up on self-worth. So if you want to learn about these 2 things, send me an email and put those, either self-worth or self-trust, in the title, and ask about it. I'll send you more information about those. They're not up on my website yet. Social media, my name is on most of my social media. So YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Pinterest is all Barry Selby. So definitely youtube.com/Barry Selby, because I've got lots of videos, including our show is there as well. It's got its own playlist, 200+ episodes as mentioned. And then I'm the real Barry Selby on Threads and on Instagram. So you can find me all over the place doing my marketing and promoting all my stuff, and you get to learn from me wherever you want to find out.
You can see Barry's beautiful pictures when he goes out on his hikes.
Yes, indeed, you can.
And Barry and I are here live every week at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between. You can watch us live and ask us questions. We'll be happy to answer them while we're here. You can also watch us on Apple TV and Roku. We're getting millions of views. It's very exciting. But if you don't want to watch us on your TV or laptop, you could take us with you, right, Barry?
Yeah, you can listen to us. You won't get to see our pretty faces, but you can hear what we're talking about. So we are now having all our talks are uploaded as podcasts. So on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Amazon Podcasts, you can listen to us wherever you go and take us with you when you're hiking, driving, working at the gym, shopping, whatever you're doing. You can have us plugged in your ear and giving you tips on dating and relationships. So worth listening to us and following our podcast.
I know we're hearing that we're binge worthy. People are binging our podcast because there's so many fascinating, helpful subjects.
Indeed.
So we'd love for you to like or share and give us 5 stars, write us a review. That helps us go higher in the analytics so more people can help with us. And you can share us also with people that are having trouble with their dating and relationship part of their life. Oh
yeah, if this speaks to you, I'm sure there's some friends of yours that you'll speak to as well. So share these with them as well.
So we will be back next week with a more interesting conversation.
We'll see you again. Take care.
Bye.